Have you ever stopped to wonder why the very love you hold onto so tightly sometimes feels less like warmth and more like chains around your chest? Think about it. How many times have you convinced yourself that what you call love is actually freedom, when deep inside it feels like a cage disguised as comfort? We grow up told that love is supposed to liberate, to expand our lives, to make us whole. Yet when you look closer, many of us are not experiencing freedom in love at all. We're experiencing dependency, fear, and an endless hunger for reassurance that never seems to be satisfied. Let me take you to a scene. Anna sits across from Michael at a cafe. They've been together for years, but the silence between them is suffocating. She glances at her phone, waiting for a message from him, even though he's right in front of her. He checks her reactions constantly, needing her attention like oxygen. They love each other, or at least they call it love. But beneath the surface, both of them are terrified. She fears being abandoned, he fears being unseen. They are not partners in freedom. They are prisoners of each other's insecurities. If you've ever been in a relationship like that, you know how heavy it feels. You don't feel like yourself anymore. You feel like your worth depends on whether the other person smiles at you, texts you back, or chooses you today. And that weight is unbearable. Yet you still hold on to it because the thought of letting go feels even more frightening. Why do we do this? Why do we mistake captivity for love? The truth is, love often hides its opposite within it. It seduces us with promises of connection, but underneath, it can chain us to patterns of fear, control, and self-betrayal. We tell ourselves it's passion. We call it destiny. We romanticize the suffering. But what if it isn't destiny at all? What if it's a trap created not by fate, but by the way our minds and souls are wired? Think of Daniel, who spent years chasing relationships that always ended the same way. Women who pulled away, leaving him shattered. He thought he was cursed, that the world was unfair to him. But the truth was more unsettling. He wasn't chasing love. He was chasing his own wounds, projected onto the faces of those he chose. His love was not love at all. It was captivity disguised as devotion. And here is where Spinoza and Jung enter the scene. Not as distant philosophers locked in dusty books, but as voices that speak directly to this pain you felt, maybe even the pain you're feeling right now. Spinoza, the philosopher of radical freedom, once suggested that true love cannot exist without freedom. If your so-called love feels like chains, then it is not love, it is dependency. And Jung, the depth psychologist, revealed something equally unsettling, that what we love in others is often nothing more than a mirror of our hidden self, our shadow. That means the very thing keeping you captive might not even be the other person. It might be the reflection of your own unconscious staring back at you. This isn't just philosophy or psychology. This is about you. About the times you clung to someone who hurt you, the nights you stayed awake questioning why you weren't enough, the desperate hope that maybe tomorrow they would love you better. You've been there. We all have. And tonight, you will see why. Because what if I told you that the love that holds you captive is not a curse from outside, but a truth buried deep within you? A truth that Spinoza and Jung dared to expose, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The question is, will you dare to face it? Imagine a bird in a cage. The owner swears he loves the bird. He feeds it, protects it, keeps it safe from danger. But the bird does not sing. Its wings are still, its eyes restless. Is this love? Or is it captivity disguised as care? Spinoza would say the answer is obvious. Love without freedom is not love at all. It is possession. It is fear. It is an illusion that feels warm at first, but slowly strangles the soul. Spinoza lived in the 17th century, exiled and shunned for daring to think differently. To him, freedom was the very essence of being alive, the key to everything. He believed that to live freely meant aligning with the truth of our nature, without chains of superstition or blind desire. And when it came to love, he saw something most of us refuse to admit, that what we often call love is nothing more than attachment, mixed with fear of loss. Think of Sarah, who begged her partner to stay, even after he admitted he no longer felt the same. She said she couldn't breathe without him. She thought her dependence was proof of love. But Spinoza would shake his head gently and tell her, "No, Sarah, that is not love. That is bondage to your desire, bondage to an illusion." Because for Spinoza, love that imprisons is not love. It is a symptom of our misunderstanding of what it means to truly connect. Spinoza believed that real love emerges not from clinging, but from freedom. The freedom to let the other be fully themselves, without control, without demand, without turning them into the object that must complete you. In his view, if you need the other person to fill the emptiness inside you, what you feel is not love. It is dependency wrapped in desperation. Picture two people standing on a mountain. They hold hands not because they are afraid of falling, but because they both want to see the horizon together. At any moment, they could let go and still remain whole. That, to Spinoza, is closer to true love, a love where freedom and connection coexist, a love where presence is a choice, not a prison. But why then do we cling so desperately? Why do we confuse chains for intimacy? Spinoza would say it's because of the way desire works. We desire what we lack, and once we obtain it, we fear losing it. Desire tricks us into believing we are incomplete, and the other becomes the crutch that keeps us standing. We forget that wholeness must come from within, not from the grip we place on someone else's hand. Michael, from the cafe earlier, doesn't check Anna's phone out of love. He checks it because he fears freedom. He wants certainty, control, a guarantee that she belongs only to him. But can love ever survive where there is no freedom? Or does it rot in the cage just like the silent bird? This is the painful truth Spinoza forces us to face. Much of what we call love is only the mask of fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of emptiness, fear of facing ourselves without the reflection of another. He reminds us that until we learn to love from a place of freedom, we will always mistake captivity for passion. And that is where philosophy alone stops, but psychology goes deeper. Because if Spinoza exposed the chains of attachment, Jung revealed why we forged them in the first place. He uncovered the hidden side of love, the unconscious forces that make us repeat the same painful patterns, as if we are bound to a script we never wrote but cannot stop performing. Spinoza showed us that love without freedom is not love, but dependency. Yet even knowing this, most of us still cling, still repeat the same painful attachments. Why? Because something deeper than logic pulls the strings. This is where Carl Jung enters. The voice that whispers that our hearts are not simply seeking love, but projecting the hidden parts of our own souls onto others. Jung believed that every human being carries within them a shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, repress, or refuse to see. These are not just our flaws, but also our unmet needs, our silent fears, our unacknowledged desires. And when we fall in love, that shadow often chooses our partner for us. We think we are meeting someone new, someone magical, someone who completes us, but in truth, we are often meeting the disowned pieces of ourselves, reflected back through their eyes. Take David, who always found himself drawn to cold, distant women. He told his friends he was cursed with bad luck in love, but Jung would tell him otherwise. David was not cursed. He was chasing the shadow of his own emotional distance. He could not embrace his vulnerability, so he pursued women who mirrored that rejection. His heartbreak was not fate. It was his unconscious screaming at him to face what he refused to see in himself. Or think of Emily, who adored men who seemed powerful and charismatic, but who constantly betrayed her trust. She wept every time, swearing she would never repeat the mistake, only to find herself in the same story again and again. Jung would say Emily was not simply unlucky, she was projecting her own unacknowledged hunger for power, admiration, and validation. The men she loved carried her shadow, and she mistook it for love. This is the haunting truth Jung uncovered. We don't just fall in love with another person, we fall in love with the mirror they hold up to us. And if we are unconscious of this mirror, love becomes a cycle of repetition, not liberation. We are not choosing our lovers, they are chosen by the wounds and shadows we refuse to face. Think about it. How many times have you said, "Why do I always fall for the same kind of person?" That pattern is not coincidence. It is not just bad luck. It is the hand of your unconscious writing the script of your relationships, and unless you confront the shadow, you will keep acting out the same role with different faces, different names, but the same ending. Jung reminds us that real love begins with self-awareness. If we do not acknowledge our shadow, we will forever chase it in the eyes of another. That is why freedom in love is so rare, because most of us are not free within ourselves. We are captives of our own projections, shackled not by the other person, but by the parts of ourselves we refuse to see. Imagine standing in front of a mirror in a dimly lit room. You see your outline, but parts of your reflection are swallowed in darkness. That darkness doesn't disappear because you ignore it. It only grows more powerful. And when you meet someone who embodies those hidden traits, you feel magnetized, as if destiny has brought you together. But it's not destiny. It's your shadow, finally demanding to be seen. This is why love can feel both intoxicating and terrifying. It awakens what is hidden. It forces us to confront not just who the other person is, but who we are. And unless we learn to recognize projection, we will keep mistaking our own shadow for love. So, if Spinoza warns us that love without freedom is captivity, Jung deepens the revelation. We are often the jailers of our own hearts. Because until we bring our shadow into the light, we will keep falling for the reflection that binds us instead of the connection that could set us free. Spinoza warned us, if love becomes a chain, it is no longer love. It is captivity. Jung revealed, if you do not face your shadow, you will project it onto others and call it destiny. When we place these two truths side by side, something striking happens. We begin to see that the prison of love is not built by our partner, but by ourselves. And the key to freedom is not found in holding on tighter, but in understanding why we cling in the first place. Picture Olivia, who kept returning to a man who belittled her. Friends begged her to leave. They told her she deserved better, but she insisted she couldn't live without him. To Spinoza, Olivia's dependence was not love but bondage, her desire disguised as devotion. To Jung, her attachment was a mirror of the unhealed wound within her, the part of her that believed she was unworthy of respect. Olivia's suffering was not just about him, it was about her own shadow. This is where philosophy and psychology collide. Spinoza gives us the structure. Freedom is the condition for love. Jung gives us the explanation. We cannot be free in love until we face the parts of ourselves that enslave us. Together, they reveal a truth few dare to face, that what holds us captive in love is not the other person, but the inner patterns we refuse to confront. Think about how many relationships you've seen where two people orbit each other like planets bound by gravity, never free, never whole. On the surface, they look inseparable, but beneath, their bond is made of fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of inadequacy, fear of being unseen. Spinoza would tell them, your love is not freedom. Jung would whisper, your love is your shadow projected. And both would agree, until you awaken, you will keep repeating the cycle. Daniel, the man who kept chasing rejection, was not unlucky. He was enslaved by desire and blinded by projection. Sarah, who begged for love, was not proof of devotion, she was proof of bondage. Emily, who trusted men who betrayed her, was not cursed, she was caught in her shadow's grip. Each story weaves Spinoza and Jung together. Captivity born from desire, repetition born from shadow. But here lies the hope hidden inside the pain. If captivity is created by our illusions and projections, then liberation is possible the moment we begin to see. When you recognize that love without freedom is not love, you take back your power. When you realize that what you love in the other is often your own shadow, you reclaim your wholeness. In that moment, the chains begin to fall. Spinoza wanted us to understand that freedom is not the absence of love, but the foundation of it. Jung wanted us to know that the unconscious, once made conscious, no longer controls us from the shadows. When we unite their wisdom, we discover that love can be something different, not captivity, not projection, but a conscious choice between two whole beings who see each other clearly. Imagine for a moment two mirrors facing each other. Normally they reflect endlessly, trapping the image in an infinite loop. But if one mirror chooses to turn slightly, the cycle breaks. That small act changes everything. This is what happens when we begin to turn toward our own shadow instead of chasing it in another. The reflection no longer enslaves us, it frees us. So the question becomes, are you willing to break the reflection? Are you willing to see that the love that holds you captive may not be about the other person at all, but about the parts of yourself you have not yet faced? Because if you are, then what Spinoza called freedom and what Jung called individuation meet in one place. The possibility of a love that is not prison, but power. Let me speak to you directly now, not through philosophy, not through theory, but through the quiet truth you already know in your chest. Think back to the moments you have loved so fiercely that you lost yourself. The nights you lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every silence, every gesture, wondering what you did wrong. The mornings when your stomach clenched because their message never came. The ache when you felt invisible to the very person you gave everything to. If you've lived through that, you know the weight of love that holds you captive. But here is the hardest truth. You were never really chained to them. You were chained to the reflection of yourself you saw in their eyes. That is why it hurts so much when they turn away. It feels like losing not just a person, but a piece of your own identity. And in that moment, the fear whispers, without them, who am I? This is why we stay even when we know we should leave. This is why we forgive what breaks us, why we call pain passion, why we wear scars and convince ourselves they are proof of devotion. Because deep down, we are not only afraid of losing the other, we are afraid of meeting ourselves in the silence they leave behind. Think of James, who endured years of subtle rejection from a woman who never truly loved him back. He told himself it was noble, that real love meant sacrifice. But the truth was, James was terrified of solitude. He wasn't loving her, he was using her presence as a shield against the emptiness he feared within. When she finally walked away, he felt shattered. But in that emptiness, he faced himself for the first time. And slowly, painfully, he discovered that he was more than her approval. Or imagine Claire, who gave her whole life to partners who treated her as secondary. She thought that if she loved enough, one day someone would finally see her worth. But Jung would say Claire wasn't loving freely. She was reliving an old wound, projecting her childhood fear of being overlooked. Her partners were not the cause of her suffering. They were the mirrors reflecting the shadow she had never dared to face. And haven't we all been James or Claire at some point? Haven't we all mistaken chains for devotion, silence for depth, repetition for destiny? The truth is that these stories are not just theirs. They are yours and mine and everyone's. Because until we face the shadow within us, until we understand Spinoza's call to freedom, we will all keep confusing captivity with love. Now pause for a moment. Feel your own heart beating. Think of the faces from your past, the ones who left scars, the ones who made promises they couldn't keep, the ones you still remember with a mix of longing and pain. Ask yourself honestly, were you free in that love? Or were you trapped, silently hoping that chains could somehow transform into wings? The courage to face this question is not small. It asks you to peel away the illusions that have comforted you for years. But in that rawness lies the beginning of something different. Because once you admit that what you lost was not freedom, but captivity, you begin to see the possibility of a love that doesn't suffocate, a love that doesn't demand, a love that allows both souls to breathe. And this is where the wisdom of Spinoza and Jung begins to shift from abstract ideas to living truths. Love is not meant to erase your fear. It is meant to reveal it. Love is not meant to complete you. It is meant to reflect what is missing so you can finally claim it for yourself. And once you see this, once you recognize the pattern, you cannot go back. The chains begin to feel lighter, not because someone else unlocked them, but because you finally stopped holding them yourself. So I ask you, what love in your life feels like freedom? And what love feels like captivity dressed in the language of devotion? The answer to that question may be the most important truth you ever dare to face. By now, perhaps you feel a stirring inside you, an uneasy recognition. You've seen yourself in James, in Claire, in Sarah or Daniel. You've felt the invisible chains that Spinoza named and the haunting mirrors that Jung revealed. And the question begins to rise. If this is true, if what I've called love has really been captivity and projection, what can I do? How do I change it? The first step is the most difficult one, to stop running. For so long, we chase after another person to avoid standing still with ourselves. We fear the silence of being alone, because in that silence the shadow speaks. But that silence is not your enemy, it is your teacher. When you dare to sit with your emptiness instead of rushing to fill it with another body, another message, another promise, you begin to see the truth of what you actually need. Think of Laura, who always leapt from one relationship to the next, terrified of being single. Each breakup felt like drowning, so she immediately grabbed the nearest lifeboat. But when she finally chose to remain alone, truly alone, she discovered something unexpected. The silence she feared became the space where her voice returned. The loneliness she dreaded became the soil where her own strength grew roots. For the first time, she felt whole without someone else holding her together. This is the heart of Spinoza's freedom, to love from choice, not from need. If you are not free to walk away, you are not truly free to stay. Love must be chosen, not clung to. And the paradox is this: the moment you stop needing someone to complete you is the moment you can finally love them fully. But Jung takes us deeper still. He tells us that facing the shadow means recognizing that the qualities we obsess over in others, whether we admire them or resent them, are often the pieces of ourselves we have not integrated. That partner who makes you feel small might be reflecting your own disowned strength. That lover who abandons you might be carrying the echo of your own fear of intimacy. To break the cycle, you must dare to ask, what part of me am I seeing in them? This is not easy. It requires brutal honesty. It requires the courage to look in the mirror and say, this pain I keep repeating is not only about them, it is about me. And that is where transformation begins, because once you claim your shadow, it no longer has to appear in the form of another who wounds you. Once you own your power, you no longer have to beg someone else to hold it for you. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff. For years, you've been holding onto another person like a rope, terrified that if you let go, you'll fall. But when you finally release, you discover wings you didn't know you had. That is the power of facing your shadow and choosing freedom. it does not mean living without love. It means creating a space where love can breathe, where it is not a prison, but a sanctuary. Look at Michael from earlier, checking Anna's phone for proof of her devotion. If Michael confronted his fear of abandonment within himself, he would no longer need to police her every move. He could love her, not as a possession, but as a person. Look at Emily, betrayed time after time. If Emily faced her own shadow, the hunger for validation, she would stop mistaking betrayal for passion and begin to recognize respect as the true mark of love. This is what you can do with the truth. Turn inward before you turn outward. Claim what is yours before you demand it from someone else. Free yourself so that your love can finally be a choice, not a cage. And here's the paradoxical beauty. The moment you embrace your shadow and step into freedom, the love you give becomes more powerful, not less. Because it no longer comes from fear. It comes from fullness, from wholeness, from truth. So ask yourself now, with honesty, if the love you are in today vanished tomorrow, would you still be whole? If the answer is no, then perhaps what you've been calling love is something else entirely. But if you begin to face the silence, the shadow, the fear, you might just discover that real love was waiting for you on the other side of your own captivity. And now, we return to the question we began with. Does the love in your life set you free, or does it hold you captive? Perhaps you feel the weight of that question more strongly now. You've walked through the stories of Sarah and Daniel, Emily and Michael, James and Claire, Olivia and Laura. Each one of them thought they were loving, but what they were truly doing was binding themselves to fear, to projection, to chains they mistook for devotion. And if you are honest, you may recognize a piece of yourself in every single one of them. But here is where the truth becomes both terrifying and liberating. No one else holds the key to your freedom. Not your partner, not your ex. Not the one who left you shattered or the one you still long for. The key has always been in your hands, hidden in the shadows of your own soul. Because as Spinoza reminded us, love without freedom is not love. And as Jung revealed, what we call love is often just our shadow staring back at us. So what does this mean for you? It means that the power to transform your relationships begins with you, not with changing the other person, not with forcing them to stay, not with begging them to see your worth. It begins the moment you face yourself, the moment you admit that what you've been chasing outside is the part of you you've abandoned inside. Think of David again, chasing cold hearts because he refused to face his own. Think of Claire, giving away her worth because she never claimed it for herself. Think of James, who feared solitude until it revealed him to himself. These stories are not tragedies, they are revelations. They remind us that the pain we call heartbreak is often the breaking of the illusion we've been living under. And once the illusion breaks, a door opens. On the other side is not a perfect partner, not a guarantee that you'll never hurt again, but something even greater. The freedom to love without chains, to love without projection, to love not because you need to be completed, but because you have already discovered your wholeness. Imagine standing before someone you love and saying not, "I need you to fill my emptiness, but I choose you freely from the fullness of who I am." That is love, as Spinoza envisioned it, rooted in freedom. That is love as Jung pointed toward, no longer a mirror of your shadow, but a reflection of your conscious self. And yes, this path is not without pain. To face your shadow, to step into freedom, means letting go of illusions that once felt safe. It means mourning the chains you thought were love. It means losing a version of yourself that believed captivity was passion. But what you gain is immeasurable. A love that breathes, a love that expands, a love that does not suffocate, but sustains. So I ask you again, does your love set you free or does it hold you captive? Only you can answer. And perhaps, for the first time, you are ready to face the answer without fear. The hidden truth is this: the love that binds you is never stronger than the freedom within you. Once you dare to see your shadow, once you dare to claim your own wholeness, no chain can hold you anymore. Love becomes what it was always meant to be, not a prison but a choice, not a hunger but a gift, not captivity but freedom. And if you dare to believe this, if you dare to live it, then the love you long for will no longer be the one that traps you. It will be the love that sets you free.